Click on the subscribe button to subscribe to our channel, like and share this video, and engage in our comments. I didn't expect anything to change when we started therapy. Honestly, I didn't expect much of anything anymore. Marriage had become a quiet routine of misunderstandings and empty I love yous. We weren't angry all the time, we were just disconnected, like two strangers playing house. So when Jason suggested therapy, I agreed without thinking. Maybe it was guilt, or habit, or just something to fill the silence. I remember the first time we walked into that office. It was quiet and warm, like stepping into someone's living room. There was soft jazz playing, a candle burning on the bookshelf, and then he stood up to greet us. Dr. Marcus Reed. I'd never seen a therapist like him. He was tall, really tall, and built like someone who used to play football but aged into something even more confident. Black, mid 30s, with a voice that made the room feel smaller when he spoke. Jason shook his hand first, polite, professional. I just stood there for a second longer than I should have, taking in how his hand dwarfed Jason's. I'm Marcus, he said, smiling at me as we sat down. Thank you for coming in. It wasn't the words, really. It was how he said them. Like he meant it, like he'd been waiting for us. Our sessions started out just like you'd expect. Basic questions. Where did things start to go wrong? How often do we argue? When was the last time we felt close? Jason did most of the talking. He always does, especially when things get uncomfortable. I usually just nodded or added little details, but mostly I watched. I watched how Marcus listened, really listened. His eyes stayed on me, even when Jason rambled. And every now and then he'd ask me something directly, softly, like, how did that make you feel? Or, did you feel heard in that moment? And for some reason, I answered. The first time I cried in a session, I hated myself for it. I don't like being seen when I'm vulnerable, especially not in front of Jason. But Marcus didn't flinch. He didn't look away. He handed me a tissue and said, "It's okay to let go here." Something shifted that day. I started looking forward to our sessions. I'd think about them during the week, what I might say, how Marcus might respond. It wasn't anything specific, just this quiet anticipation, a feeling I hadn't felt in a long time. One day, Jason had to reschedule last minute for work. He told me to go ahead without him, said it was good for me to talk even if he wasn't there. So I went, alone. Marcus welcomed me in the same as always, but it felt different somehow. There was no Jason. No we, just me. We talked for almost an hour about my childhood, my fears, my loneliness, and at the end of the session, he stood to walk me out, but stopped just before reaching the door. I just want you to know, he said, you're not invisible. I see you. I mean that. I nodded, but I couldn't speak. My throat tightened. My hands shook the whole drive home. That night, I lay in bed next to my husband, wide awake, and all I could think about was the way Marcus said those words. Not the therapist, not the marriage, just the man. And something inside me whispered that this wasn't going to stay professional for long. The next session, I wore lipstick. I told myself it was just for me, just a little something to help me feel awake, more put together. But I knew better. I picked the shade he glanced at the last time we sat across from each other, and I caught myself checking the mirror twice before I walked into his office. Jason came with me this time, of course. He was late, texting from the parking lot that he'd had to take a quick call. So for 5 minutes, it was just me and Marcus again. Hey, he said, that easy voice lowering just a bit. You seem lighter today. I smiled before I could stop myself. I guess I'm just getting used to this. Or maybe you're just starting to feel safe here. He held my gaze like he meant it, and for the briefest second, I imagined what it would feel like to be alone in that room with him. No couch, no sessions, no rules, just silence and skin and truth. Jason walked in a moment later, and the air shifted back to normal, or at least what passed for normal. We talked about communication that day. Marcus said we needed to be honest with each other, Real honesty isn't about confessing, he said. It's about risking being seen. I nodded like I understood. Jason, on the other hand, mostly looked at the floor. That was always the difference. Jason heard words. Marcus listened to silence. After the session, while Jason stepped out to take another call, I lingered behind, pretending I'd forgotten my sweater. Marcus was standing by the bookshelf, one hand in his pocket, his eyes tracking me. Not in an obvious way, but just enough for me to feel it. You know, he said quietly, I worry about you sometimes. I turned. Why? Because I think you've spent so much time making things work, you've forgotten what you actually want. I swallowed, hard. What do you think I want? He didn't answer right away. He stepped closer. Not too close, but close enough that I felt the heat from his skin. I think you want to feel again, he said, voice low, steady, and maybe to be touched without feeling guilty about it. I froze, not out of fear, out of something else. Something that made my hands clench at my sides. His words weren't vulgar. There was nothing inappropriate about them. But the way he said them, it felt like an unspoken truth I hadn't admitted even to myself. We didn't move. We didn't touch. But in that stillness, something electric passed between us. Then Jason's voice echoed from the hall. Babe, you coming? I grabbed my sweater, nodded quickly, and rushed out. That night, I couldn't stop replaying it. His voice, that look, the silence, and my own reaction, how my breath had caught, how my skin had burned. I lay in bed next to Jason, staring at the ceiling, feeling both ashamed and alive. It wasn't an affair, not yet, but something had started, and I knew I wasn't going to be the one to stop it. I told Jason I needed a solo session. I said it casually over dinner. I think it'd be good for me to talk on my own. You know, just clear my head a bit. He barely looked up from his phone and just nodded. Yeah, sure, whatever helps. I scheduled it for Friday afternoon. That gave me time to build up the lie in my head, to convince myself I was going just for clarity, just for myself. But I knew what I was doing. The moment I walked into Marcus's office alone, the air felt heavier. The couch looked smaller. The space between us had always been quiet, but now it felt like something was humming beneath the surface, like a fuse was already lit, and we were just pretending not to smell the smoke. He didn't sit down right away. Neither did I. Rough week? He asked gently. I guess, I said, but I mostly just wanted to talk to you. That made him pause. Not in surprise, but like he knew it was coming. He tilted his head, his eyes soft but locked on mine. You can talk to me about anything, he said. I should have started with something safe, childhood memories, work stress, marital issues. But instead, I took a breath and said, I can't stop thinking about what you said last time. He didn't pretend to misunderstand. He just nodded once, slowly. I know. And then silence. Not awkward, not rushed, just full. He finally motioned to the couch, and we sat, closer this time. Not touching, not even grazing, but close enough to notice the way our knees almost aligned, the way his breath slowed when mine did. I feel guilty, I said. For what? He asked. For wanting you to say something again, like last time? His eyes held mine, steady and unflinching. Do you want to hear it again because it scared you? Or because it made you feel something you haven't felt in a long time? I couldn't answer that. Not because I didn't know, but because it was both. He leaned forward just slightly, elbows on his knees. His voice dropped lower, softer. You spend your whole life being someone's wife, someone's support system, but who's ever shown up just for you? I blinked quickly, trying to swallow the tightness in my throat. I don't know. I do, he said. You're sitting with him. My whole body went still. He didn't move, didn't reach for me, but his words felt like hands around my waist, my face, my heart. Everything inside me wanted to close that last inch between us. to fall forward, to finally feel. But I didn't. He didn't. Instead, we sat in it, that impossible, delicious space between right and wrong, between longing and restraint. And in that space, I saw the truth neither of us would say out loud. We were already having an affair, not physical, not obvious, but emotional, intimate, real. He walked me to the door, like always, and right before I left, he said something so quiet I almost missed it. "You're not crazy for wanting more. You're just human." I nodded, barely able to breathe, and then I left, my heart thundering in my chest, my body vibrating with everything we didn't do. That night, Jason asked how the session went. I lied, and as I curled up beside him in bed, all I could think about was how close I'd come, how close I wanted to come again. By the time I scheduled the next session, I wasn't pretending anymore. I picked a dress I hadn't worn in years, something soft, fitted, the kind that hugs your body just right without screaming for attention. I told myself it was for confidence. I told myself it was just another appointment. But deep down, I knew why I was doing it. And Marcus knew it too. When he opened the door, his eyes paused on me for just a second too long. That was all it took. My pulse jumped. I stepped in, brushing past him, letting the silence speak for us. We didn't start the session right away. No casual questions, no light check ins. He just watched me as I sat down, slower this time. I crossed my legs. He noticed. "So," he finally said, "what brings you in today?" I gave a soft laugh, more nervous than amused. "Do you really want me to say it?" He leaned forward slightly, his voice low. "Only if you're ready." The room felt smaller, warmer. Every little movement, his hand resting on the armrest, the flex of his jaw when he looked at my lips, felt amplified, like the world had quieted just for us. "I don't know what I'm doing anymore," I whispered. "I don't know what's right or wrong, but when I'm here, with you, I feel like I exist again." He stood, slow and deliberate. I held my breath. He walked over, not close enough to touch me, but enough to feel the gravity pulling between us. "You've been holding everything in," he said softly. "Maybe too much for too long." His words felt like they were peeling back something inside me, stripping away the polite smiles and quiet compromises. I stood too, our eyes level now, inches apart. "I don't want to make a mistake," I said, voice shaking. He looked at me for a long time. Then gently, "Maybe the mistake was pretending you didn't need to feel wanted." My knees nearly gave out. He reached up, slowly, carefully, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. His hand lingered, fingertips brushing the side of my face. The heat from his skin sent a shock down my spine. I didn't back away. Neither of us moved. His other hand hovered near my waist, so close I could feel the warmth, the intention. But he didn't touch me. It was restraint, deep, trembling restraint. I wanted him to kiss me. I wanted to fall into whatever this was, no matter the cost. But he didn't. Instead, he whispered, "If I touch you now, everything changes." I couldn't speak. I just looked up at him, breathing hard, lips parted, caught between craving and consequence. Then, suddenly, a knock. A firm, unexpected knock at the office door. We froze. I stepped back. He turned away, jaw tight, eyes closing for a second like he had to force himself not to finish what we started. He opened the door just enough to look out, his voice now professional again. "Give me a minute." He turned back to me, that raw, unfinished electricity still crackling between us. "I think we should end here," he said, voice rough. I nodded, heart racing. I gathered my things in silence, my hands trembling. But just as I reached the door, he stopped me. "Next session," he said, "don't lie about what you really want." I looked at him, my whole body screaming with unanswered questions. And then I left, every step echoing with what almost happened. But deep inside, I knew we weren't finished, not even close. If you want more real, emotional stories like this one, stick around. You might just hear one that hits close to home. Subscribe for more.